Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the most incredible stories on Earth, how plants conquered the planet. We're going to trace their whole evolutionary journey from just a simple green film, hugging wet rocks, all the way to the massive, complex flowering trees that literally shape our world. So, let's get right into it. Okay, so look at this number, 93%. What in the world could that represent? Well, get this. It's the percentage of all living plant species that share one single revolutionary adaptation, an invention that completely changed the game. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you're going to know exactly what that is and why it was such a massive deal. All right, our story really kicks off with the first big split in the plant world, kind of like a huge fork in the road. And it all boils down to one surprisingly simple question. Does a plant have internal plumbing or not? I'm not kidding. That one difference, it set the stage for two completely different evolutionary paths. So on one side, you've got your non-vascular plants. Just think of them as living without a fancy transport system. And because of that, they're stuck being small, just kind of hugging the ground. But then, on the other side, you have the vascular plants. These guys are equipped with this amazing, complex internal tissue system. Yep, they're plumbing, and that's what lets them move water and nutrients around and, you guessed it, grow tall. Okay, so let's dive into that first group, the pioneers, the ones trying to make it work without any plumbing. We're talking about the bryophytes. These were the very first plants to really try and make a go of it on dry land. The survival strategy for bryophytes is actually pretty fascinating. They don't have true roots or stems, which is exactly why you see them as these simple green mats on rocks and soil. Now, that structure also means they're totally tied to moist places. And here's the kicker, the really critical part. They need a film of water so their sperm can literally swim to the egg for reproduction. Just think about that. This total reliance on water was a massive limitation. It basically put a cap on how big they could get and where they could live. So this brings us to a huge evolutionary puzzle, right? If you can't grow tall, how on earth do you compete for sunlight against others? And maybe even more importantly, how do you ever escape the need for water to reproduce and conquer drier land? These were the big questions that evolution had to solve. And wow, did evolution come up with an answer? It was nothing short of a revolution, the evolution of vascular tissue. That was the ultimate upgrade. It solved both the transport and the support problem, and for the very first time, it allowed plants to truly start reaching for the sky. This toolkit for growing tall is it's brilliant. Okay, first up, you get the plumbing, right? You've got xylem to pull water up, and it's reinforced with this super strong stuff called lignin for support, and then phloem to move all the sugars around. Step 2, you get real roots to anchor the plant and suck up nutrients. And third, you develop these complex leaves, which are basically super efficient solar panels. And here's why this is so huge. This toolkit didn't just change plants, it changed the entire planet. It's what made massive forests possible, and those forests completely altered our atmosphere and our climate forever. But, of course, there's a catch. Even with all this amazing new hardware, the first vascular plants, think of things like ferns, were still kind of stuck in the past in one really crucial way. They still reproduced with spores, and just like their mossy ancestors, those spores needed water. So yeah, the plumbing was there, but they hadn't quite cut that final cord to their aquatic past. Another breakthrough was definitely needed. And that leads us to the next massive leap forward in plant evolution, the seed. Honestly, the best way to think of it is as a tiny survival pack for the next generation. You've got a little embryo, all protected, with its own packed lunch ready to go. This single invention is what would let plants finally, truly conquer dry land. So the first group to really master this whole seed thing were the Gymnosperms. The name actually comes from the Greek for naked seed, and that just perfectly describes it, right? Their seeds, like the ones you'd find on a pine cone, are just out there, exposed to the world, not tucked away inside a protective chamber. And then you have the complete opposite, the Angiosperms. Their name means enclosed seed. These are the flowering plants we see everywhere, and their key innovation was to develop their seeds inside a protective chamber, called the ovary, which then grows up to become a fruit. That single difference, naked versus enclosed, is absolutely fundamental to understanding plants. So what exactly made these seed plants so wildly successful? Well, it was a whole new evolutionary toolkit. We're talking tiny protected reproductive parts, two different kinds of spores, a protective structure called an ovule, but the real game changer, the absolute masterstroke, was pollen. This tough little package could carry sperm right through the air. No more swimming. It completely eliminated the need for water and fertilization. And you top that off with the seed itself, a protected embryo with its own food supply, and you've got the complete system for dominating the land. And this brings us to the final act in our story, the flower. This one innovation, it led to an absolute explosion in the diversity of angiosperms. And yep, these are the flowering plants that make up that 93% we talked about at the very beginning. They're the ones that completely dominate our planet today. And the strategy behind it was as simple as it was unbeatable. Flowers are for reproduction. They evolved to attract animals, basically tricking them into becoming pollen delivery services. And fruits, they're for dispersal. They protect the seeds and tempt those same animals into carrying them far, far away. This partnership between plants and animals, it was just an evolutionary masterstroke. And even within this huge, successful group, things get even more diverse. They split into two main classes, monocots and dicots. Let's just quickly look at the differences. Monocots, like your grasses, they start with just one little embryonic leaf, and their leaf veins run in parallel. Dicots, like roses, start with two, and their leaves have those net-like veins. It doesn't stop there. They've got different root systems, and even their flower parts are different. Monocots come in multiples of 3, while dicots are in 4s or 5s. It's just a beautiful example of how evolution takes a winning formula and then tweaks it for all sorts of different purposes. So, there you have it. I mean, what an epic journey. From a simple, slimy green film on some moist rocks, all the way to a planet absolutely covered in complex forests and vibrant flowers. And it was all driven by this series of brilliant evolutionary solutions to the challenges of living on land. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's going to be the next chapter in the incredible story of plants?